The morning sky over New York City looked normal until it didn't. Sarah Mitchell was pouring her coffee when the first shadow passed over her apartment window. She looked up, expecting to see a plane, but what she saw made her drop the mug. The ceramic shattered on the kitchen floor as she stared at something impossible floating above Manhattan. The ship was massive, stretching across several city blocks. Its surface was dark gray, with strange patterns that seemed to shift and move, like living metal. Sarah grabbed her phone and started recording, her hands shaking as more shadows appeared. One ship became 10, then 50, then hundreds. The sky was filling with alien vessels of different sizes, all moving with silent precision. Dr. Marcus Chen was in his laboratory at MIT, when every computer screen in the building went black. Then, in bright green letters, a message appeared. In every language on Earth simultaneously, your planet has been selected for harvesting. Resistance is futile. Evacuation protocols will begin in 24 hours. Marcus stared at the screen, his scientific mind trying to process what he was seeing. Outside his lab window, he could see the ships hovering over Boston. They were arranged in perfect formations, like a military fleet preparing for battle. His phone buzzed with emergency alerts from every government agency, but the messages were all the same. Seek immediate shelter and await further instructions in London. London's 16-year-old Amy Thompson was walking to school when the sirens started wailing. She looked up to see the alien ships blocking out the sun, casting the entire city in an eerie twilight. People were running in every direction, screaming and crying. Cars crashed into each other as drivers abandoned their vehicles to flee on foot. Amy pulled out her phone and called her mother, but the call wouldn't go through. All communication networks were jammed. She ran home as fast as she could, dodging panicked crowds and falling debris from buildings damaged by the ships. Energy fields. When she reached her house, she found it empty. A hastily written note from her mother said they had gone to the emergency shelter downtown. Captain Jake Rodriguez was on duty at NORAD, and the first ships appeared on radar. First they thought it was a system malfunction because nothing that large should be able to fly. Then the visual confirmation came in from dozens of military bases around the world. The objects were real, and they were everywhere. Jake watched helplessly as his commanding officers tried to establish communication with the alien fleet. Every attempt was met with silence until exactly 24 hours after the first appearance. Then came the response that would change everything. A massive energy pulse that swept across the planet, shutting down every electronic device that wasn't properly shielded. The pulse hit major cities first. In Tokyo, millions of people were trapped in elevators and subway systems as the power grids failed. Hospital patients on life support died within minutes. Cars stopped working, planes fell from the sky, and nuclear power plants went into emergency shutdown. The modern world had been reduced to the Stone Age in a matter of seconds. Emma Watson, survival instructor living in the Canadian wilderness, felt the pulse as a strange tingling sensation in the air. Her radio went dead, but she had always lived without depending on technology. From her cabin, she could see strange lights moving across the northern sky. The alien ships were beginning their harvest. The harvest itself was unlike anything science fiction had ever imagined. The aliens didn't use weapons in the traditional sense. Instead, their ships emitted a field that caused all organic matter to simply vanish. Entire forests disappeared, leaving behind only bare soil. Lakes and rivers evaporated instantly. Animals collapsed and faded away like smoke. In the cities, the effect was even more horrifying. People would be walking down the street when the field passed over them. They would stop, look confused for a moment, then slowly become transparent before disappearing entirely. Buildings remained intact. Every living thing inside was gone. Sarah had managed to reach the subway tunnels beneath Manhattan when the harvest began in her area, which was with about 30 other people, including a police officer named Tom Bradley and an elderly man named Professor Williams, who claimed to be a physicist. They heard the screaming from above grow louder, then suddenly stop. When Tom volunteered to go up and check, he came back white-faced and shaking. The street was empty. Not just of people, but of every living thing. No pigeons, no stray cats. Not even weeds growing through the sidewalk cracks. The city had become a tomb of concrete and steel, with only the wind making any sound. The survivors realized they were living in humanity's final hours. Marcus had gathered with other scientists. In an underground bunker at MIT, they were trying to understand the alien technology and find some way to fight back. Their instruments detected that the harvesting field was some kind of quantum energy that targeted specific types of organic molecules. It seemed to be collecting biological information, not just destroying life. One of the researchers, Dr. Lisa Ye Park, made a disturbing discovery. The field wasn't random in its effects. It was selective, targeting humans and other complex life forms first, then working its way down to simpler organisms. It was as if the aliens were cataloging Earth's biodiversity, taking samples of everything before moving on to the next world. Amy had found her way to the underground shelter where her mother was supposed to be. But the building was empty, except for a dozen other survivors. They had watched through security cameras as the harvest moved through London like an invisible wave. Millions of people had simply vanished, leaving behind their clothes, their belongings, their final screams echoing through empty streets. The survivors quickly realized that being underground provided some protection from the harvesting field, but it wasn't perfect. The field seemed to weaken as it passed through solid matter, giving them precious time to move deeper or find better shielding. They began a desperate game of hide-and-seek with an enemy they couldn't see or understand. As the first day of the harvest ended, reports came in from the few remaining radio operators around the world. Out of nearly 8 billion people, only scattered groups of survivors remained. Most were underground, in caves, deep basements, or subway systems. The aliens had taken over 99% of humanity in less than 24 hours, and their ships showed no signs of leaving. 3 days after the harvest began, the surviving humans started to understand the true scope of their situation. The alien ships had stopped moving and now hovered motionlessly above every major population center on Earth. The harvesting fields continued to sweep across the planet in regular patterns, making it impossible for anyone to stay in one place for too long. Sarah's group in the new subway tunnels had grown to 15 people. They had rescued others from collapsed sections and abandoned subway cars. Among the new survivors was Dr. Jennifer Hayes, a medical doctor who had been trapped in a hospital basement when the harvest hit. She brought terrible news about what she had witnessed during her escape. Dr. Hayes told them about the collection centers. The aliens weren't just making people disappear randomly. Were gathering the harvested humans in massive transparent containers aboard their ships. Through broken hospital windows, she had seen hundreds of these containers, each one filled with unconscious people floating in some kind of fluid. The humans were alive but seemed to be in some form of suspended animation. This revelation changed everything for the survivors. They weren't just trying to avoid death anymore. They were trying to avoid being collected like specimens for an alien zoo or laboratory. The knowledge that their families and friends might still be alive somewhere in those ships gave them new hope, but also made their situation feel even more desperate. Marcus and his group of scientists established communication with other survivor groups using modified ham radios that were shielded from the alien interference. They learned that similar small groups were hiding all over the world. In total, they estimated that fewer than 1,000 humans remained free on the entire planet. The scientists made another disturbing discovery while studying the alien ships through telescope observations. The vessels weren't just hovering randomly. They were positioned in a precise geometric pattern that covered the entire globe. Each ship was exactly the same distance from its neighbors, creating a perfect grid that suggested this was a well-practiced operation. Dr. Park calculated that if each ship was responsible for harvesting a specific area, then Earth was being processed with the efficiency of a factory assembly line. The aliens had done this before, probably on many other worlds. Humanity wasn't their first victim, and they likely wouldn't be their last. Amy's group in London had discovered something important about the harvesting field. While exploring the underground tunnels beneath the city, they found that certain materials seemed to block or deflect the energy. Lead was the most effective, followed by several feet of concrete or dense rock. This information was shared with other groups and gave the survivors their first real tool for fighting back. The London survivors began constructing mobile shelters. using lead sheets scavenged from hospital X-ray rooms and construction sites. These crude but effective shields allowed them to move around the city during harvesting sweeps and search for supplies. They also discovered that the field had a predictable schedule, passing over any given area approximately every 6 hours, Captain. Rodriguez had made contact with other military survivors from around the world. Most military installations had been specifically targeted by the aliens, and very few soldiers remained alive. Those who had survived were mostly personnel who had been in deep underground bunkers or submarines at the time of the initial harvest. The military survivors confirmed what the scientists suspected. This was an organized invasion by a technologically advanced civilization. The aliens had likely been observing Earth for years, studying human behavior and planning the most efficient way to harvest the population. Every aspect of their operation showed careful planning and previous experience. One of the submarine commanders, Captain Lisa Park of the USS Michigan, reported that the alien ships occasionally sent smaller craft down to the ocean floor. These smaller vessels appeared to be collecting samples of marine life in ocean water. The aliens weren't just interested in humans. They were cataloging all life on Earth. Emma, the survival instructor in the Canadian wilderness, had become a crucial link between survivor groups. Her location in a remote forest and her knowledge of off-grid communication systems made her cabin a relay station for messages between different groups. Through her, survivors learned about safe routes, alien patrol patterns, and successful hiding techniques. Emma also made a critical observation about the alien behavior. The ships avoided certain areas of the planet, particularly regions with high levels of natural radiation or unusual electromagnetic fields. This suggested that their technology had limitations and vulnerabilities that could potentially be exploited. The survivors began to organize themselves into a loose network of resistance cells. Each group had specific responsibilities. The scientists worked on understanding alien technology. The military survivors gathered intelligence on ship movements and defensive capabilities. And civilian groups focused on rescue operations and gathering supplies. Communication between groups was dangerous and difficult, but they managed to establish regular contact schedules using shortwave radio frequencies that seemed to be less monitored by the aliens. They developed code words and encryption methods to prevent the aliens from understanding their conversations if they were being intercepted. As the days passed, the survivors noticed changes in the alien ships. Some of the smaller vessels began leaving Earth's atmosphere, apparently returning to larger motherships hidden behind the moon or in deep space. The departure of these craft suggested that the initial harvesting phase was nearing completion. Dr. Hayes made another disturbing discovery during a reconnaissance mission to the surface. The alien ships were beginning to modify Earth's atmosphere. Chemical analysis of air samples showed increasing levels of gases that were toxic to most Earth life forms but might be beneficial to alien biology. The invaders weren't just harvesting Earth. They were preparing to colonize it. The realization that Earth was being terraformed for alien habitation added new urgency to the survivors' situation. They weren't just fighting for their own lives anymore. They were fighting for the future of their entire planet. Every day they remained free was another day to gather information, make contact with other survivors, and possibly find a way to fight back. Sarah's group discovered an abandoned electronics store that had been shielded from the electromagnetic pulse by its underground storage area. They found equipment that allowed them to boost their radio signals and make contact with survivor groups on other continents. For the first time since the invasion began, they realized they were part of a global resistance movement. The international communication revealed that survivor groups in different parts of the world were facing similar challenges, but had developed different survival strategies. Groups in mountainous regions used cave systems for protection, while those in urban areas relied on underground infrastructure. Desert survivors had learned to use sand dunes as natural shields against the harvesting field. Marcus worked with survivors around the world to compile a complete database of alien ship positions, patrol patterns, and harvesting schedules. This information allowed them to create safe travel routes between survivor groups and coordinate rescue operations for people still trapped in exposed areas. The scientific analysis of the alien ships revealed something surprising. Advanced technology, the vessels showed signs of age and wear. Some ships had visible damage that suggested they had been in battles. Before coming to Earth, this meant the aliens weren't invincible and had faced resistance from other worlds they had attempted to harvest. 2 weeks after the invasion began, the survivors made their first major breakthrough. Amy's group in London had been experimenting with different ways to disrupt the harvesting field when they accidentally discovered something remarkable. While trying to boost their radio signal using a makeshift antenna array, it created an electromagnetic pulse that caused nearby alien collection drones to malfunction. The discovery happened during a routine harvesting sweep. Amy and 2 other survivors were hiding in their lead-lined shelter when they noticed the harvesting field flickering and distorting near their radio equipment. When they turned up the power, 3 small alien drones that had been collecting biological samples suddenly stopped working and crashed to the ground. This was the first time any human had successfully damaged alien technology. Amy immediately contacted other survivor groups to share the discovery. Within hours, scientists around the world were working to replicate and improve upon the electromagnetic disruption technique. Marcus's group at MIT had the resources to analyze the crashed drones that Amy's team had recovered. Was both encouraging and terrifying. The alien technology was incredibly advanced, but it relied on quantum processors that were vulnerable to specific types of electromagnetic interference. The drones were essentially biological sample collectors, equipped with the same harvesting field technology used by the larger ships. Dr. Park made a crucial discovery while examining the drone's internal components. The aliens used a form of organic computing that combined biological tissue with synthetic materials. This hybrid technology was incredibly efficient, but had a fatal weakness. It could be disrupted by electromagnetic pulses tuned to the same frequency as human brainwaves. Revelation that alien technology was somehow connected to human brain patterns suggested something disturbing. The invaders hadn't just studied human technology before their arrival. They had studied human biology in detail. Their harvesting equipment was specifically designed to work on creatures with human-like nervous systems. Sarah's group in New York began building larger versions of the electromagnetic disruptor based on plans shared by the scientists. They salvaged parts from abandoned electronics stores and used the subway's power infrastructure to generate the necessary energy. Their first full-scale test brought down an entire collection drone squadron, proving that humans could fight back. Against their invaders, the success of the electromagnetic weapons led to the first coordinated resistance operation. Survivor groups in major cities around the world synchronized their attacks to target alien drones simultaneously. The goal was to disrupt the harvesting operations and possibly rescue some of the collected humans from the ships. Captain Rodriguez coordinated the military aspects of the operation from his underground command post. Using the global survivor network, he identified the most vulnerable alien positions and assigned specific targets to each resistance cell. The attack was scheduled for exactly midnight GMT, ensuring that survivor groups around the world would strike at the same moment. The coordinated assault was more successful than anyone had dared to hope. Electromagnetic disruptors in 12 major cities brought down hundreds of alien drones and caused significant damage to several smaller harvesting ships. For the first time since the invasion began, humans had struck back effectively against their attackers. However, the success came with a terrible price. The aliens responded to the coordinated attack with unprecedented aggression. Instead of their usual methodical harvesting sweeps, they began actively hunting the remaining human survivors. The larger ships started sending out armed reconnaissance drones that could track electromagnetic signatures and identify human places. Dr. Hayes witnessed the alien retaliation firsthand when a hunting drone discovered their London shelter. The mechanical creature was unlike anything they had seen before, a sleek, fast-moving device that seemed to phase in and out of visibility. It was equipped with weapons that could punch through lead shielding and defensive systems that made it nearly impossible to destroy. The hunting drones forced the survivors to completely change their tactics. They could no longer rely on static defenses or predictable hiding places. Instead, they had to become mobile, constantly moving to avoid detection while continuing their resistance operations. This transformation from hidden refugees to active, guerrilla fighters marked a new phase in humanity's struggle for survival. Emma's wilderness location became a crucial staging area for the new mobile resistance. Her extensive knowledge of forest terrain and survival techniques helped train other survivors in guerrilla warfare tactics. She established hidden supply caches throughout the Canadian wilderness and created escape routes that could be used by resistance fighters. Fleeing from alien pursuit, the survivors also learned to use the aliens' own technology against them. Crashed drones could be stripped for parts that were then integrated into human-built weapons and defensive systems. This alien technology was far more advanced than anything humans had previously developed. But it was also compatible with human engineering once its basic principles were understood. Marcus made another breakthrough when he discovered that the quantum processors in alien drones could be reprogrammed using modified human computer code. This revelation meant that captured alien technology could potentially be turned into weapons against the invaders. The first successful reprogramming resulted in a drone that could jam alien communications and create dead zones were harvesting. Fields couldn't operate. The resistance network began, establishing permanent safe zones around the world using networks of reprogrammed alien drones. These areas were small, usually no more than a few city blocks, but they provided secure bases where survivors could rest, plan operations, and treat wounded resistance fighters. The safe zones also served as communication hubs for coordinating attacks against alien targets. Amy's group discovered that the alien ships had a weakness related to their formation flying patterns. When multiple ships were operating in close proximity, they created interference patterns in their harvesting fields. By timing their attacks to coincide with these interference patterns, resistance fighters could move through areas that should have been deadly to human life. The survivors began mapping these interference patterns and using them to plan rescue operations. They discovered that some of the collection containers aboard alien ships could be accessed during these brief windows of reduced field strength. This led to the first successful rescue of harvested humans who were still in the early stages of the alien preservation process. The rescued humans provided crucial intelligence about the interior of alien ships. They described vast holding areas filled with thousands of collection containers, each one containing humans from different parts of the world. The containers were connected to a central processing system that seemed to be extracting and cataloging human memories and experiences. Dr. Hayes examined the rescued humans and found that they had been implanted with alien monitoring devices. These tiny machines were designed to record neural activity and transmit the information back to the alien ships. The discovery suggested that the invaders weren't just collecting human bodies, they were stealing human consciousness and knowledge. The resistance fighters realized they were fighting not just for their lives, but for their minds and souls. The aliens weren't just harvesting Earth's biological resources. They were stealing everything that made humans unique: their memories, their creativity, their individual personalities. This knowledge transformed the resistance from a desperate survival effort into a war for human identity itself. Sarah's group successfully removed the monitoring devices from rescued humans, using modified alien medical equipment salvaged from crashed drones. The process was dangerous and didn't always work, but it represented hope that humans could free themselves from alien control. Each successful removal was a small victory that proved human ingenuity could overcome alien technology. 1 month into the invasion, the resistance had grown from scattered survivors into an organized fighting force. However, they faced a new and terrifying development. The alien ships began releasing what appeared to be modified humans onto the Earth's surface. These creatures looked human but moved with mechanical precision and showed no emotion or recognition when confronted by the resistance fighters. Dr. Hayes was the first to examine one of these modified humans after a resistance operation captured several of them. What she found was horrifying beyond imagination. The aliens had taken harvested humans and surgically altered them, placing parts of their brains and nervous systems with alien biomechanical components. These modified humans retained their memories and basic personalities but were completely under alien control. The modified humans posed an unprecedented threat to the resistance. They knew human tactics, human psychology, and human weaknesses. They could infiltrate survivor groups by pretending to be rescued humans, then lead alien forces directly to resistance hideouts. Several safe zones were compromised before the survivors learned to identify and defend against these infiltrators. Marcus worked desperately to develop detection methods for the modified humans. He discovered that the alien biomechanical implants created subtle electromagnetic signatures that could be detected with modified alien scanner technology. This breakthrough allowed resistance fighters to identify infiltrators, but it also revealed the true scale of the alien modification program. Thousands of modified humans were being deployed across the planet. Aliens were using humanity's own people as weapons against the resistance, turning loved ones into enemies and making every human encounter potentially deadly. This psychological warfare was as effective as any physical weapon the aliens possessed. Amy's group in London encountered a modified human who had once been Amy's own schoolteacher, Mrs. Robertson. The woman looked exactly as Amy remembered. Her spoke in the same voice and even seemed to recognize Amy by name. However, when Amy tried to talk to her about shared memories from school, it became clear that while Mrs. Robertson retained her knowledge, she had lost everything that made her truly human. The encounter with Mrs. Robertson revealed something important about the alien modification process. The creatures retained their human knowledge and skills, but had lost their ability to form emotional connections or make independent decisions. They were essentially biological computers programmed with human memories and personalities. Captain Rodriguez realized that the modified humans represented a new phase in the alien invasion. The initial harvesting had been about collecting biological resources. The modification program was about creating a slave workforce that could help the aliens manage and control Earth's resources more efficiently. Intelligence. Resistance operations suggested that the aliens were preparing for long-term occupation of Earth. They were modifying the atmosphere, establishing permanent bases, and creating an army of human slaves to help them exploit the planet's resources. This wasn't just an invasion. It was a colonization effort that would completely replace human civilization. Sarah's group made a disturbing discovery while monitoring alien communications. The invaders were in contact with other alien fleets operating throughout the galaxy. Earth was just one of many worlds being harvested simultaneously. The aliens were part of a vast galactic empire that consumed entire civilizations to fuel their expansion across the universe. The knowledge that humanity was fighting against a galaxy-spanning empire could have been demoralizing. But instead, it galvanized the resistance. If Earth fell completely, the aliens would move on to harvest other worlds with impunity. The human resistance wasn't just fighting for Earth. They were fighting for every civilization the aliens would target next. Emma's wilderness group discovered something that gave the resistance new hope. While analyzing alien ship movements, they noticed that several vessels had departed Earth's orbit and hadn't returned. Communications intercepts suggested that some of the alien fleets had encountered problems on other worlds they were trying to harvest. Dr. Park confirmed. Emma's observations through radio astronomy data collected by resistance scientists. Aliens were facing active resistance on multiple worlds simultaneously. While their technology was superior to anything humans possessed, they weren't invincible. Other civilizations had found ways to fight back. Some had apparently been successful enough to force alien retreats. This revelation led to a new strategy for the human resistance. Instead of focusing solely on defending Earth, they began trying to contact and coordinate with resistance movements on other worlds. If they could establish communication with alien enemies throughout the galaxy, they might be able to coordinate multi-world attacks that could cripple the entire alien empire. The first attempt at interstellar communication used modified alien technology to broadcast messages into space. The resistance sent detailed information about alien weaknesses, successful resistance tactics, and the electromagnetic disruption techniques that had proven effective against alien drones and ships. Within weeks, they received a response. The message came from a civilization that called itself the Kepler Collective. Located in a star system 47 light-years from Earth, the Collective had been fighting the same alien empire for over 200 years and had developed advanced weapons and tactics specifically designed to counter alien technology. The Kepler Collective shared technical specifications for weapons that could disable entire alien ships rather than just individual drones. They also provided intelligence about alien command structures, strategic weaknesses, and the locations of major alien bases throughout the galaxy. Most importantly, they offered to coordinate a galaxy-wide resistance operation that would target the alien empire on multiple fronts. Simultaneously, Marcus and the other resistance scientists worked frantically to build the weapons designs provided by the Kepler Collective. The technology was far beyond current human capabilities, but it could be constructed using components salvaged from alien ships and drones. The Resistance had been collecting alien technology for weeks, and now they finally had a use for the stockpiled materials, the first human-built Kepler weapon was completed in an underground facility beneath New York. It was a massive device that required the power output of an entire city block to operate, but when tested against a captured alien ship, it completely disabled the vessel's systems in seconds. The ship didn't just crash, it became completely inert, as if every piece of alien technology aboard had simply stopped working. Amy's group successfully used a smaller version of the Kepler weapon to liberate an entire alien processing facility. They rescued over 3,000 humans who were in various stages of the modification process. Many of the rescued humans could be completely restored to normal, while others retained some alien modifications but regained their free will and human emotions. The large-scale rescue operation provided crucial intelligence about alien plans for Earth. The processing facility contained detailed records of the modification procedures, lists of target populations for future harvesting, and most importantly, the locations of major alien command centers around the world. Dr. Hayes made a breakthrough in treating humans who had been partially modified by the aliens. She discovered that the biomechanical implants could be safely removed if the procedure was performed within a certain time limit. Humans who had been modified for longer periods could still be helped. They would retain some alien enhancements while regaining their human consciousness. The Resistance realized that the modified humans could become powerful allies if they could be freed from alien control. These individuals retained all their human knowledge and skills, while also possessing enhanced physical capabilities and limited access to alien technology through their implants. Captain Rodriguez organized the first major offensive operation using intelligence gathered from liberated processing facilities. Resistance fighters from around the world would simultaneously attack alien command centers in 12 major cities. The goal was to disrupt alien command structures and demonstrate that humanity could strike back effectively against their oppressors. Sarah's team was assigned to attack the primary alien command center in North America, located beneath what had once been downtown Los Angeles. The facility was heavily defended by both alien technology and modified humans, but the Resistance had developed tactics specifically designed to counter both types of enemies. The synchronized global assault was scheduled to begin in 72 hours, coordinated with similar attacks by Resistance movements on 6 other worlds throughout the galaxy. For the first time since the invasion began, humanity would be part of a coordinated interstellar resistance effort that could potentially defeat the alien empire once and for all. The coordinated galaxy-wide assault began exactly as planned. Resistance fighters on 7 different worlds struck simultaneously at alien command centers, using weapons and tactics shared through the interstellar communication network. On Earth, 12 teams of human resistance fighters launched their attacks within minutes of each other, creating chaos throughout the alien command structure. Sarah's team approached the Los Angeles command center through abandoned subway tunnels that had been flooded during the initial invasion. They carried Kepler weapons that had been modified to work in Earth's atmospheric conditions. along with electromagnetic disruptors that could neutralize alien security systems. The team consisted of 15 fighters, including several liberated humans who retained enough alien modifications to help them navigate alien technology. The command center was larger and more complex than any alien facility the Resistance had previously encountered. It extended deep underground, with multiple levels connected by transport tubes that used alien gravity manipulation technology. The facility was defended by hundreds of security drones and nearly 1,000 modified humans who showed no hesitation about fighting their former species. Marcus had coordinated the technical aspects of all 12 Earth attacks from his command post in the MIT underground facility. His team monitored alien communications and provided real-time intelligence to the assault teams. Within the first hour of the operation, they detected massive disruptions in alien command networks across the entire planet. The attacks were succeeding beyond the Resistance's wildest hopes. Alien ships throughout Earth's atmosphere began exhibiting erratic behavior as their command links were severed. Several ships actually crashed when their automated systems failed, creating massive explosions that lit up the sky like artificial suns. Amy's team had been assigned to attack the European Command Center beneath what remained of Berlin. They encountered something unexpected during their assault. Alien commanders who looked nothing like the harvesting drones and collection ships humans had been fighting. These creatures were tall, graceful beings with translucent skin and multiple arms, clearly the actual intelligence behind the invasion force. The alien commanders were not just directing the invasion. They were personally overseeing the modification of captured humans. Amy's team discovered laboratories where these beings were experimenting on human subjects, trying to create more effective slave soldiers by combining human creativity with alien technology. The sight of these experiments filled the Resistance fighters with rage that gave them strength to fight harder than they ever had before. Captain Rodriguez led the attack on the Military Coordination Center hidden beneath the ruins of Washington, D.C. His team consisted entirely of military survivors who had been planning this moment since the first day of the invasion. They fought through waves of modified human soldiers, many of whom they recognized as former colleagues and friends. The psychological impact of fighting against modified humans was devastating, but the Resistance fighters had been trained to focus on liberating their former friends rather than destroying them. They used weapons designed to disable the alien biomechanical implants without killing the hosts. This approach was slower and more dangerous, but it meant that successful assaults could rescue modified humans rather than simply eliminating them. Dr. Hayes coordinated medical support for all the assault teams from a mobile field hospital established in the Chicago safe zone. She had trained medics in techniques for quickly removing alien implants from rescued humans and treating injuries caused by alien weapons. Her biggest challenge was dealing with Resistance fighters who had been psychologically damaged by having to fight against people they had once loved. The Resistance discovered that the alien commanders had been keeping detailed records of human civilization. The command centers contained vast databases of human history, culture, science, and art. The aliens had been studying humanity for decades before the invasion, learning everything they could about human psychology and social structures to make their conquest more efficient. Emma's wilderness group provided crucial support for the urban assault teams by creating diversionary attacks on alien facilities in remote areas. These operations drew alien reinforcements away from the major command centers, reducing the defenses that the main assault teams had to overcome. Emma personally led a successful attack on an alien atmospheric processing station that had been terraforming the Canadian wilderness. The simultaneous attacks on multiple worlds created unprecedented chaos within the alien empire. Communications intercepted by the Resistance showed that alien forces throughout the galaxy were being recalled to defend their most important installations. For the first time, the invaders were on the defensive rather than simply harvesting defenseless civilizations. Sarah's team reached the core of the Los Angeles Command Center after 6 hours of continuous fighting. They found a massive chamber filled with quantum computers that were coordinating alien operations throughout the Western Hemisphere. The computers were protected by energy shields that had to be disabled using a combination of Kepler weapons and electromagnetic disruptors. The battle for the computer core was the most intense fighting of the entire war. Modified humans defended the facility with desperate determination, as if they understood that destroying the computers would free them from alien control. Some modified humans even began switching sides during the battle, their human personalities reasserting themselves as the alien control systems were damaged. When the quantum computers were finally destroyed, the effect was immediate and dramatic. Across the western United States, alien ships began losing coordination and crashing. Modified humans collapsed as their control implants shut down, then slowly began to regain their normal personalities and memories. The harvesting fields that had made the surface deadly to human life flickered and died. Marcus reported similar successes from the other 11 assault teams around the world. Every major alien command center on Earth had been destroyed or severely damaged. The alien invasion force was in complete disarray, with ships fleeing Earth's atmosphere or crashing when their coordination systems failed. The Kepler collective contacted Earth with news that the galaxy-wide assault had been even more successful than planned. 3 major alien motherships had been destroyed, and alien forces were retreating from dozens of worlds. The alien empire's expansion had been stopped for the first time in centuries, and several previously conquered civilizations had been liberated. However, the victory came with sobering news. The Resistance had succeeded in stopping this wave of alien expansion. But the Empire itself was vast, and would likely regroup for another attempt at galactic conquest in the future. The freed civilizations would need to work together to defend against future alien attacks. Dr. Hayes began the massive task of treating the millions of modified humans who had been freed when the command systems were destroyed. Many could be completely restored to normal human consciousness, but others retained some beneficial alien modifications while regaining their free will. These enhanced humans would become crucial in humanity's efforts to prepare for future conflicts. Amy discovered something remarkable in the ruins of the Berlin Command Center. The alien databases contained the locations of other harvested civilizations throughout the galaxy, including many that had been completely absorbed by the alien empire decades or centuries earlier. This information could potentially be used to liberate billions of enslaved beings across the galaxy. The Resistance fighters who had survived the assault operations became the core of a new human military force dedicated to defending Earth against future alien attacks. They had proven that humans could fight back successfully against superior technology through courage, ingenuity, and cooperation with other free civilizations. Sarah stood on the surface of Manhattan for the first time in over a month.
Watching
The last alien ships disappear into the depths of space. The city was empty and scarred, but it was free. Around the world, other human survivors were emerging from hiding to begin the long process of rebuilding their civilization and preparing for the challenges that lay ahead. The invasion had cost humanity nearly everything, but the survivors had gained something invaluable: the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe, and that freedom was worth fighting for, no matter how impossible the odds seemed. The 12 human survivors who had led the Resistance would carry that knowledge forward as they helped rebuild their world and prepared for whatever challenges the future might bring. 6 months after the liberation of Earth, the 12 survivors who had led the Resistance found themselves facing challenges they had never imagined during the war. Sarah Mitchell stood in what had once been Times Square, now serving as the central hub for coordinating the massive effort to rebuild human civilization. The empty buildings around her were slowly being repopulated as millions of liberated humans returned from alien ships or recovered from their modifications. The rescue operations had been more successful than anyone had dared hope. Over 3 billion humans had been recovered from alien collection facilities throughout the solar system. Most were in good physical condition, having been preserved in the alien suspension systems, but many suffered from psychological trauma after their experiences. The task of helping them readjust to freedom was enormous. Dr. Jennifer Hayes had established the first post-invasion medical centers, specializing in treating both physical and psychological effects of alien capture and modification. She worked tirelessly with teams of recovered doctors and newly trained medical personnel to develop treatments for conditions that had never existed in human history. Many former captives had been given beneficial alien modifications that enhanced their physical capabilities, creating ethical dilemmas about whether these improvements should be removed or retained. Marcus Chen had taken on the monumental task of reverse engineering alien technology for peaceful purposes. The abandoned alien facilities contained advanced manufacturing systems, energy generation, technology, and computing devices that were centuries ahead of human development. His teams worked to adapt this technology to help rebuild Earth's infrastructure and prepare humanity for its new role as a member of the galactic community. The Kepler Collective had established a permanent diplomatic presence on Earth, helping humanity understand the complex political landscape of the galaxy. The universe was filled with both free civilizations and enslaved worlds, locked in an ongoing struggle against various imperial powers. Earth's successful resistance had made humanity valuable allies, but it had also made them targets for other, hostile civilizations. Amy Thompson, now recognized as one of Earth's youngest war heroes, had dedicated herself to education and cultural preservation. The alien databases contained detailed records of human history and culture that had been lost during the invasion. She worked with teams of historians and artists to restore libraries, museums, and schools using both recovered human knowledge and information gathered by alien observers over decades of secret surveillance. Captain Jake Rodriguez commanded the New Earth Defense Force, a military organization that combined human tactics with captured alien technology. The force included both unmodified humans and enhanced individuals who retained beneficial alien modifications. Their mission was to protect Earth from future invasions and to participate in joint operations with other free worlds against remaining imperial threats. Emma Watson had established the Global Reconstruction Initiative, using her wilderness survival expertise to help rebuild sustainable communities across the planet. Much of Earth's ecosystem had been damaged by alien terraforming efforts, requiring extensive restoration work. Her teams worked to reintroduce species that had been preserved in alien databases and to repair environmental damage caused by the invasion. The 12 resistance leaders discovered that their war experiences had changed them in ways they were still learning to understand. They had been exposed to alien technology and ideas that expanded their understanding of what was possible. Some had voluntarily retained minor alien modifications that enhanced their physical or mental capabilities. All of them carried the psychological burden of having fought a war that most of the recovered human population had missed entirely. Sarah found herself dealing with complex political challenges as Earth established its first planetary government. The old national boundaries and political systems had become irrelevant during the invasion, and humanity needed new forms of organization to deal with their changed circumstances. The resistance leaders had to balance their military experience with the need to create democratic institutions that could represent the interests of billions of recovered humans. The recovered humans presented their own challenges. Many had been modified in ways that gave them enhanced intelligence or physical capabilities. Others had been exposed to alien knowledge and perspectives that changed their understanding of humanity's place in the universe. Some wanted to use their modifications to help rebuild civilization, while others demanded that all alien influences be removed from their bodies and minds. Dr. Hayes made breakthrough discoveries about the long-term effects of alien modification on human psychology. Many enhanced humans showed increased creativity, improved problem-solving abilities, and better emotional regulation. However, they also sometimes struggled with feelings of isolation from unmodified humans and uncertainty about their identity. As human beings, Marcus successfully established the first human-operated alien technology manufacturing facilities. These installations could produce advanced materials, energy systems, and computing devices that would allow humanity to rapidly rebuild their civilization at a much higher technological level than had existed before the invasion. However, the technology also raised questions about whether humanity was ready for such rapid advancement. The Kepler Collective shared intelligence about other civilizations that had been recently liberated from various imperial powers. Many of these worlds were interested in establishing trade and cultural exchange, relationships with Earth. Humanity was being invited to join a growing alliance of free worlds that worked together to resist imperial expansion and share technological In cultural knowledge, Amy established the first interstellar communication networks, allowing humans to maintain regular contact with resistance movements on other worlds. These communications revealed that Earth's successful defense had inspired liberation movements throughout the galaxy. Several worlds that had been under Imperial control for centuries were now actively rebelling against their occupiers, Captain. Rodriguez participated in the first joint military operation between Earth and the Kepler Collective, helping to liberate a world that had been under alien control for over 50 years. The operation was successful, but it demonstrated that Earth's military forces would need extensive training and technological upgrades to participate effectively in interstellar conflicts. Emma's ecological restoration projects had unexpected success when alien-preserved genetic samples allowed the reintroduction of species that had been extinct on Earth for thousands of years. The restored ecosystems were more diverse and resilient than the pre-invasion environment, suggesting that Earth might emerge from the crisis stronger than it had been before. The psychological adjustment of the resistance leaders themselves was an ongoing challenge. It spent months in constant danger, making life-and decisions that affected the survival of their species. Transitioning from wartime leadership to peacetime reconstruction required different skills and emotional approaches that were difficult to master. Sarah often stood in the rebuilt Times Square, watching children play in areas that had been battlefields. Just months earlier, the sight filled her with hope for humanity's future, but also with the weight of responsibility for ensuring that Earth would never again be vulnerable to invasion. She and the other 11 resistance leaders had become symbols of human resilience, but they were also ordinary people trying to build extraordinary lives in a universe that had revealed itself to be far stranger and more dangerous than they had ever imagined. The recovery of Earth was just the beginning. Humanity had proven they could survive and fight back against overwhelming odds. But now they faced the greater challenge of thriving as members of a galactic community. The 12 survivors who had led the resistance would spend the rest of their lives helping their species adapt to a universe filled with both wonders and terrors beyond human imagination. The alien invasion had intended to harvest Earth's resources and enslave its population. But instead, it had forged humanity into something stronger and more capable than they had ever been before. The survivors carried the story of Earth's liberation to other worlds, inspiring resistance movements across the galaxy and proving that no empire, no matter how powerful, could permanently suppress the desire for freedom that burned in the hearts of all sentient beings.